is global disruption. How great leaders and organizations conquer culture, business, and digital transformations. And I'll start by saying that the title of our conference is a bit of a misleading title because I will posit that there is no such thing as a digital transformation. Certainly, there is no such thing as a successful digital transformation without a business and cultural transformation. We have been digitizing things for a long time, and it doesn't mean, however, that you're having a digital transformation. There is no digital transformation without business and cultural transformation, especially in times of uncertainty and rapid change and global disruptions like the ones we're living through right now. So I'm going to change hats here from conference host to presenter. So hang with me here as I move to my new role. And my new role is that of a connected worker, and how we are accelerating successfully culture, business, and digital transformation. But what I want to share with you is not my opinion about the subject, because my opinion doesn't matter. What really matters are the observations and insights that we get from true practitioners and leaders who are implementing successful transformations in their organizations, successful transformations that create value for all in the organization and customers and society. What does that look like? So what we're going to be looking at are the lessons learned from more than 1,000 award-winning organizations on excellence, on innovation, on culture, business, and digital transformation. Now, we have to be careful as we proceed here, because there are many organizations that do this, but not all of them are successful. And what I want to share with you are the practical lessons for those that have succeeded, in part or in whole, in transforming their organizations digitally. So credit to more than 50,000 excellence and innovation leaders across hundreds of organizations that I have the privilege to training directly, but most important, learning and collaborating with in this journey of transformation, of successful transformation. So as again, none of these organizations are perfect one way or the other. They have pockets of excellence and they have pockets of mediocrity everywhere. No organization has a hold on greatness. Greatness is hard to achieve. It's even more difficult to maintain. But I want to share the lessons of those who have achieved it, and they have, at least for certain periods of time in certain parts of the organization, they have maintained it. So what does that look like? So this is a picture from the award winners for digital transformation in 2021. Cross-industry award winners. We had a record number of submissions. We met in Orlando for the Business Transformation Operational Excellence World Summit late last year, and we honor and awarded multiple awards to these winners. So what this picture doesn't show, however, is that for every one of these winners on stage, you probably have 100 organizations or representatives, if you will, that are not on that stage that couldn't make it because they're not so proud of their results when it comes to digital transformation. Because the majority of digital transformations will actually fail, let alone you're going to be getting an award for anything. You have failed to deliver on the desired outcomes of your transformation. Worse yet, some organizations start with some sort of transformation not even thinking about what the desired outcomes are. So there's a lot to be learned here in a very short period of time. So let's see what's behind these organizations that succeed and some of those who try to succeed, but they get blocked in the process. So let's look for the main blockers for organization speed, innovation, and growth that we have observed. And this is actually supported by a very large study done by IEEE with more than 5,000 organizations, and the results are the same. the practical results and the theoretical results from the surveys match very, very well. So there are 5 top categories or blockers for organization speed, innovation, growth, and digital transformation. It's silos in organizations that do not work well together. It's a lack of faith in the objectives of that organization. It's no higher purpose that is really engages everyone in that organization towards the higher purpose. It's a tremendous fear of failure that permeates most organizations today, and prevents those organizations from achieving greater speed, innovation, and growth. And the fact that most professionals and leaders in organizations have a hard time dealing with uncertainty. They want black and white answers in a world that often gets very, very gray. So these are the major blockers. Fine, but there's one common denominator that's behind all of these blockers, and that's the one that we want to get to. And it has to do with the fact that culture permeates these blockers. And the jaws of culture will eat up and spit out good intentions that you have in your organization. And those blockers that you see are typical symptoms of the jaws of culture in action. So the jaws of culture permeate every organization, and they destroy well-intended initiatives that you have, including your digital transformations. So let's talk a little bit about culture, and let's understand why digital transformations do not work if you do not address some cultural aspects of your journey. So let's start with some basics here. So what is culture? Let's not make it super complicated and spend 2 semesters discussing culture, which we could. But ultimately, culture is simple. Culture is simply the habits and behaviors of individuals and teams in the organization. What people say matters, but what they do and how they behave is most important. So the habits and behaviors of individuals and teams in the organization is the culture that you have. Now, the question then becomes, like our previous presenter mentioned, if we want to be intentional about what we do, and if we want to be intentional about our culture, the question becomes, okay, if we want to transform into something, what type of culture do we want to have? And that, again, sounds like a very complex question. And a lot of organizations avoid these questions because they feel so complex. And it requires a higher level of collaboration that most organizations and senior leadership teams are not ready for. So they avoid the question. But let's not avoid the question. What is a good culture? And the only common denominator that we have found among these award-winning organizations on transformation, the only common denominator has been that there are many different ways you can shape a successful culture. But a common denominator is that for you to have a successful culture, you must have a culture that has a value creation behaviors. So in summary, a good culture in this high performers is a culture that exemplifies value creation behaviors. Now, when I talk about value creation here, I'm certainly talking about financial value creation, but I am also talking about social value creation. So these behaviors are financial and or social value creation behaviors. They are the only common denominator among the successful, the enduring great organizations that we have explored. So value creation behaviors are foundational for this. Keep that in mind. Now, culture and business transformation is incredibly hard because no matter what you try to do in your organization, it's likely that if you're trying to transform it, that transformation will be very hard because the culture that you currently have will resist what it most needs to change. So you may say, oh yeah, we need to transform ourselves, and inevitably you're going to run against a culture resistance, and that cultural resistance will be typically what you most need to change. It's like, trying to stop smoking and telling that to a smoker. It sounds good, but it's really hard to do because there's some ingrained behaviors that make the transformation exceedingly hard. Now, here's the first step on this journey. Don't get self-righteous about this. You must develop high levels of empathy for organizations and why they resist transformations. They resist transformations because organizations are like you and I. They are like people. We are not wired for change, let alone transformation. That sounds incredibly painful. We are wired for safety and predictability. And there's nothing that's safe and predictable about transformation. So transformation is scary. So the first thing that we need to do in this first step of our journey is to be empathetic about our current culture. Let's meet them where they're at, and let's try to understand why they resist, and let's build value creation behaviors at the current state and migrate over time. So this required a disciplined approach to your transformation, not only your digital transformation, business transformation, and cultural transformation must be tackled together for you to be successful. So how do we do this? We do this by understanding the components of successful culture and business transformation. So this is going to look to you like common sense, but I'll tell you, common sense is the least common of the senses in large organizations. So we don't do common sense things, and the larger the organization, the more difficult it becomes to do those common sense things. So what do you need for a successful culture and business transformation? You need to start with a clear purpose. What is the purpose of your organization? One of the main blockers that we discussed early on. Now, that purpose must be clearly communicated and rationalized to all in the organization. It must be a purpose that the individuals in the organization can gather around and support, that they feel compelled to be part of because it's a worthwhile purpose. That is not an easy task, and it needs to be tackled by senior leaders in the organization early on. Once you have that purpose, you need to define what are the values, the core values and beliefs in this organization that will be aligned with that purpose. So we need to have a strong set of core values that are strongly aligned with that purpose. And we need to then start creating mechanisms to live those values. Now, that's not enough. You need to also tackle the moods and feelings in the organization, because the moods and feelings in organizations are usually negative. We want to bring them to be at least at the neutral state, and certainly want them to be at the positive state. But the reality is that moods and feelings in most organizations, with the amount of disruption that we deal with, are on the negative side. People are burned out, people are overtaxed, people are uncertain about the future, and the moods and feelings reflect that. So we must be intentional about raising the moods and feelings in our organization. Why is that important? Because of the next item. We need to start shifting mindsets. To shift mindsets, you have to open a window with more positive moods and feelings. Because if I want to have a culture of innovation, for example, and I want to have a mindset of innovation, I need to raise moods and feelings so that then I can start developing a greater mindset of innovation. So as an example, but mindsets are not enough, because now you need to understand the principles associated with those mindsets. And this is really important. These are not principles that come from some person who wrote a book but actually never did it. You must be looking for real practitioners like the ones we're having in this conference. They are not just theorizing about it, they are doing it, and their lessons and principles are battle tested. You need to look for battle tested principles. So for example, on principles related to a mindset of innovation, you need to have the real principles of innovation. Not someone who says that, oh, hackathons are really cool, or exponential technologies are awesome, and I can tell you all the different variants of exponential technologies that exist today. You want to deal with people who have implemented innovations that create value, and they have the real principles of innovation. They understand them deeply. Now, even after you have that, it's not enough, because principles alone, when you talk about them, they sound interesting, but they become platitudes. You must translate these principles into actions. So how do you translate principles into actions? You have to develop mechanisms in the organization for that. What are the mechanisms in your organization that translate, for example, the principles of innovation, the principles of digital transformation into actions? But these actions cannot just be any actions. They must be value creation actions. Going back to the original point, because value creation actions are now exemplified to the organization. Those are the role play demonstrated behaviors of value creation behaviors that shape the culture that you want to have. So you see, to shape culture, you have to do every one of these components right. Most senior leaders in organizations, they don't even understand these concepts. And I don't care if you're a Fortune 10 organization, they don't understand it. So because I work with them right now, and I'm telling you, they don't understand. They will not say publicly, but in closed door meetings, they'll say, wow, I was missing number 2 and number 3 and number 4 here. And then once you put it all together, it's logical, but you have to be now intentional and disciplined about each one of those items. But keep in mind, ultimately, to build a great enduring organization and leadership and culture, you must develop value creation behaviors. Innovation by itself, as just one example, is not enough if that innovation is not connected with value creation behaviors. Whatever values, moods, and feelings, mindsets, principles that you have, you want them to translate in the end to value creation behaviors, because now you're going to build a culture that is truly a new competitive advantage for you. Now, this is all very interesting, but a bit theoretical still. So I want to move more into practice now. So I want you to first do some self-evaluation based on your experience. We have amazing, amazing practitioners and leaders of transformation in these sessions. So I want you to think, look back at your own experience as a professional, as a leader, and tell me what you think matters most on organizations and groups that successfully implement transformation. Is it driven by ideas? Is it driven by methods? Is it driven by technologies? Or is it driven by people? So, and choose what you think matters most. And here's what I'm going to tell you that we have learned from these great enduring organizations. Ideas are incredibly important. You need new ideas, you need new ways of creating value, and ideas is a great way of coming up with new ways of creating value. But ideas are also everywhere. What are uncommon in your organization are people who are willing to put their reputation behind those ideas. Okay, Joseph. So it must be methods, right? Because methods, we just heard, agile strategy execution, and we can use, Scrum, and we can use Lean and Six Sigma and advanced BPM and a whole bunch of different methods. And I'll tell you that methods are indeed very important because they provide a framework and a disciplined approach for executing on this transformation. But methods alone do not transform businesses. People do. I have been a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt for nearly 3 decades, but for most people, that sounds like a dangerous mental condition. It doesn't help them. So methods alone do not transform businesses. People do. All right, so it must be technologies, right, Jose? Because you just talked about exponential technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics process automation, natural language processing, blockchain, and on and on and on and on and on. And technologies, by all means, they can be incredible enablers for transformation, for accelerating the values and creating value for accelerating the core values and behaviors of the organization that truly create value. So technologies can be great, but it has to be the right technology, because you also have to remember that the wrong technology can make stupid happen at the speed of light, and you don't want that. So it must be people, Jose, because people are our most important asset. That sounds really good, but from a practical perspective, it's not so sound. Because first of all, stop looking at people as an asset. They are not an asset. They are people. And if you look at them as an asset, I don't think you treat them as your most important asset most of the time. When I look at large transformations, when I look at mergers and acquisitions activity, I see people being the first one to be let go. So that there is a cognitive dissonance with this thing about saying that people are most important asset and then getting rid of it as fast as possible. I'm not here to judge what's right or wrong. I'm here to share with you the actual practice that we see in these organizations. And what we see is that in great enduring organizations, all people matter. The individual, the professional matters. But the right people in the organization matter most. And the right people are the people who are able to scale the value creation behaviors that you're trying to build in your transformed organization and culture. So keep that in mind. While all people matter, we're looking for those who are going to accelerate, who are going to amplify the behaviors that you want to have in your culture. So this is very important because it's about mining for gold, and the right people in your organization is what these great enduring organizations do. Now, what you're going to hear from me throughout this presentation is a paradox. And this paradox sounds like a contradiction because Jose will say that ideas, methods, technologies, and people are real important. And then on the other hand, he says that every one of those do not really matter very much. So this is one of the greatest findings, in my opinion, from great enduring organizations. Great enduring organizations and leaders, they are masters of a complexity, and they are masters of contradictions, of seemingly contradictions, forces that pull in very different directions. And what they find, what they show to us, is that when you have forces that are pulling in very different directions, the choice is not A or B. The best choice is often a blend of A and B. But that's not obvious because we like to take these binary choices. And but greatness resides on this ability to interweave forces that pull in very different directions and make them create value for your organization and for your customers and for society. And there is no greater contradiction of forces pulling different directions than the forces of excellence and the forces of innovation in all organizations. Because what you typically see is organizations who either want to be the most excellent at what they do or the most innovative at what they do. And what the research, and certainly most important, what the practice has shown to us, is that neither the most excellent nor the most innovative organizations that become the great enduring organizations over time. It is indeed those organizations who are able to blend excellence and innovation at just the right approach. Now, I could spend an hour just on this topic. I'll summarize for you. And what we have observed on great enduring organizations is that they have a strong foundation of excellence, which means that they have high, clear standards of performance, and they work continuously to improve upon and to meet and exceed those standards of performance. But if they only do that, eventually they become obsolete. The other side, the most innovative organizations, they are constantly innovating, coming up with new ideas and coming up with new ways of doing things, which is fantastic. But nearly all of them will innovate themselves out of business over time, and they'll become mediocre. Because it's not about changing or even changing fast. It's about changing chronically consistent with your purpose. There are plenty of organizations that innovate and change all the time, but if you look at them over a long period of time, it's like a zigzag on a flat line. You do not want to have that. What you want to have is a clear purpose and innovations that move towards that clear purpose on an upward trend, hopefully. But you don't see that on the most innovative organizations. On the great enduring organizations, what you see is that they have a foundation of excellence, yet they have the discipline to step away from the foundation of excellence and say, there's got to be a better way. And they come up with innovations and better ways of doing things. Because after all, you cannot design cars by squeezing efficiencies out of horses. But here's the catch. Once they come up with the car, once they come up with the innovation, they don't get to be dominant by just continuously innovating on that. They get to be dominant by scaling the innovations they create better than anybody else. And do you know how they scale their innovations? By applying the principles of excellence on the new innovations that have been created. This sounds incredibly simple, but it's very hard because the cultures of excellence and innovation do not coexist peacefully. There is a natural friction between those cultures. And I'll posit that what the common denominator for great enduring organizations is this blend of an excellence and innovation culture and systems and mechanisms and everything else behind it. But this is a very important concept and something that you should be looking at your own organization. How much of it that we have is excellence? How much of it that we have is innovation? And what is the right blend for our organization between excellence and innovation for us to be disciplined and chronically consistent with our purpose and growth and value creation over time? So this is all very interesting, and I want to get even more practical with you. So this next 5 organizations are not some of the hundreds of organizations that I advise on. These are organizations that I had to live with the consequence of my advice because I was the leader for excellence, innovation, and transformation for this organization. So without going too deep, what I want to get here is just a couple, 1 or 2 points from each one of those organizations that represent what great enduring organizations have or do. So my background is in engineering, physics, and investment banking. I was born in Brazil, educated in the United States. My first job was working for Sony Electronics in California and Japan, designing new technologies. So very, very interesting stuff. My first boss told me my first week at work that I should identify 100 innovations among a super advanced manufacturing facility and one of the most advanced technology research centers in the world. And he wanted me, the new grad, to identify 100 innovations in that system. Now, I will short this discussion here for the sake of time, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life to this day. How can someone new identify 100 innovations in a place that they don't know much about? I was hoping I was going to get some training. But the lesson here is that in the mind of the expert, there's only one way. In the mind of the novice, there are many ways. The mind of the novice creates innovation. So my boss, Hayashi-san, his name was Shigo Hayashi, wanted me to use the mind of the novice to come up with new ways. Now, he knew that I didn't have the ability to scale those innovations, though, because you do need the mind of the expert now to scale. So you literally need to blend the mind of the novice with the mind of the expert. But most important, he didn't send me to go for training because action is more important than training when you're doing innovation. Because when you're doing innovation, what matters most are the people, but the right people. And the right people will have certain character traits that are only made visible to the organization once you have a clear execution mechanism for innovation in your organization. So what my boss then asked me to do is to come up with 100 innovations. He wanted to know really if I had those traits. And here's what we have learned from that practice is that great innovators and great innovation, as a matter of fact, doesn't rely on your gender, race, ethnicity, or how many certificates you have hanging on the I love myself wall. When it comes to real innovation, there are 4 traits and behavior characteristics that separate the right people from the others, the real innovators from the others. And these traits are, they have purpose alignment. The purpose of the professional individual aligns with the purpose of the organization or activity that you're involved in. So there is a level of purpose alignment. And then, these are more personal characteristics now, they have a tremendous level of passion for what they do, they have discipline, and they have resilience. Now, again, I could spend 8 hours discussing purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience. Here are the key takeaways I want you to remember. Those people, purpose, they have purpose alignment between their purpose and the purpose of the organization or function that they have in the organization. The next one, passion. Passion is not following in love. It's a lot more like an arranged marriage. People who work really hard in certain areas develop a certain level of expertise, and over time, the thing that they didn't even like, they develop an affinity for it. That's the type of passion that really translates in value creation innovations. But that passion alone is not enough. They must have discipline. And discipline here is not following a regimented set of rules. Discipline is consistency with purpose. And then they also must have resilience. And resilience is not being stubborn and never giving up. Resilience is about understanding that you're going to have obstacles and you need to engage with those obstacles collaboratively. Collaborative leadership is very important. And if unable to overcome those obstacles, you're going to pivot and go the longer road towards your purpose. And the reason you do that is because that resilience comes from the fact that that purpose is worthwhile for you as an individual and as a professional. So purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience are the traits that separate real innovators. If you don't remember anything that I'm going to say today, remember this. These are the traits that you're looking for the right people in your organization. That is the ultimate accelerator for excellence, for innovation, for transformation in your culture. And you'll find those people by setting a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, and not by training them only. You certainly have to equip them with new ways of thinking, but the most important component is the action. They need to drive value creation actions through innovation in your organization, and your job is to set up a system to allow them to identify, prioritize, and execute on what creates the most value in the shortest time and simplest means for the organization and its customers. All right, so that's the lesson from Sony. From Cymer ASML, you probably never heard of this company. This was one of the most successful startups in the semiconductor industry. I was very privileged to be part of that startup in California, and we took this company from nothing to a multi-billion-dollar company. Today, it's part of Cymer ASML. We develop laser technologies that are used for imaging the most advanced semiconductor circuits in the world today. So what is the lesson from this company? The lesson from this company is that we had the best technology in the world. We had the best scientists in the world, yet we could not grow. We could not grow because when you get all the smart people in the room, they spend too much time trying to prove that they are the smartest person in the room. And we didn't really move towards a common purpose in a disciplined fashion. So what is the lesson? The lesson is that it's not enough for you to just get the smart people in the room. You need to find ways for them to collaborate effectively. And the biggest lesson there is that you need to understand what collaborative leadership is and how to do it effectively. Because we're only able to grow and become one of the most successful startups in the semiconductor industry history by enabling collaborative leadership and practicing collaborative leadership across the company. I don't have time to go through all the details, but the essence of collaborative leadership is the ability for you to surround yourself with people with very different perspectives. And those people are willing to voice those different perspectives without fear of retaliation. And that's the essence of collaborative leadership. Now, as I left there, I became an innovation leader for Nestle. Now, you go from a startup to a company with 350,000 employees and more than 580 business units around the world. How you accelerate innovation in a system like that? So the lesson from Nestle that I want to share with you is that no matter the size, certainly in a bigger company is even more challenging, but no matter the size of your organization, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I don't care what initiative you have going on, if it's a digital transformation initiative, if it is a safety initiative, if it is whatever initiative you have. If you don't have empathy and align that initiative with the culture that currently exists, the jaws of culture are going to chew it up and spit it out. So make sure that you are empathetic to the culture that exists, show respect for it, Don't just try to change it saying you don't like it. You have to be empathetic, show respect for it, meet people where they're at right now, and then join them and create the most value in the shortest time and simplest means for them by showcasing the behaviors that you want to have in the new culture. What are those behaviors? Collaborative, value creation, innovation behaviors. So go show them without pausing, go show them what those behaviors look like and make them feel that those behaviors create value. And that's how you start migrating our culture. Certainly there are other things to be done, but that's a key component that you must work on, that you must work on demonstrating value creation behaviors to these people. And you have to show respect and empathy for the culture as it is. All right, so left Nestle and the mission there at Nestle to join yet another mission on a company that was over 100 years old with 12,000 of the brightest infrastructure development engineers in the world, operating more than 130 countries, building energy, water, telecommunications infrastructure for countries. And this one, I want to show you some data, because for a number of years, you had a bunch of very left brain mode engineers who just want to get to, to the action. What is that we need to do? And for those years, for 6 years, I was empathetic to the culture. And what they wanted to focus on was on ideas, was it on methods and technologies. So we implemented a traditional Lean Six Sigma approach with a focus on ideas and technologies to help them accelerate innovation and transformation in that organization. Now, notice this. We spent 6 years doing this, showing respect for the culture as it is, because that's what they wanted. So we created the value with what they wanted at first. And we got to year 6, which is a big accomplishment to create value, got engagement of people across the organization. And getting to year 6 is a big deal because 50% of all transformation programs that you hear about, they die by year 3. And 99% of them die by year 5. So when you get to year 6, you've done a few things right. Certainly, you have built trust and you have built confidence in your approaches of this organization. Enough trust and confidence and empathy for the existing culture to then say that, you know what, we have shown you that we can systematically create value for innovation and we're transforming the organization, but how can we accelerate this transformation? Now that I have shown my worth to you, give me a chance to do something radically different. Instead of focus on ideas, methods, and technologies, please let me focus on finding the right people in this organization. Oh, how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by setting a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms and allowing everyone in the organization to have access to that. So that we did. And what we did then is we said, from now on, we're not going to be focused on Lean and Six Sigma. We're going to be focused on collaborative leadership and innovation value creation. And we're going to retrain our professionals to think differently. We're going to retrain them on the disciplines of innovation, and we need to get this right for them. And we create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms. Now, we were scared because this could not work, but you must have courage and discipline to lead transformation. Remember this, courage and discipline are still required. So we implemented on year 7 a change to a program that was considered to be very successful. And we're not sure because we made this 100% voluntary. Nobody had to do anything. And a few people engaged on year 7. And on year 8, they realized, wow, anybody can be part of this? Yes. On year 9, more people joined. By year 10, on a voluntary basis, we had an 800 improvement in value creation, and we have over a 10-fold improvement in voluntary engagement around the world. Company went on to win multiple awards for global excellence, for global innovation, for business transformation, for being ranked as the #1 US private company for leaders and collaborative leadership development. Now, again, how was this done? we went from focusing on just ideas, methods, and technologies. We still have that as a background, but we focus on finding the right people, the people with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience, who are going to identify, prioritize, and execute on what creates the most value for the organization, for customers, for society. And then so that we don't know this is a fluke, let's recreate this. But let's recreate this now in an organization that is a Fortune 100 energy organization that has nothing but mediocrity in the history of this organization, but now decided that wants to go for extraordinary. How can you go for extraordinary when you are successful almost in spite of yourself? And but now you think that you can go for extraordinary. So let's look at the story here as my last example for you on how these principles are applied. So in Denver Corporation in 2010 was not in Denver Corporation. It was a company called Tesoro Corporation. It's a public company with about a $2 billion market value. And that company at that point was the signature of mediocrity. This is an oil and gas company focused on the western side of the United States and basically had logistics operations and refining operations and distribution operations across the country, but mostly focused on the western United States. And this $2 billion company was the market value for this company, but the book value of the assets of this company was greater than that, which means that the market thought that this company was worth less than the value of its assets. That's a pretty sad situation. That's a pretty good market valuation that you are less than mediocre at that point. But then what happened? In 2010, we have a new CEO that comes into the company, looks at what we have available in terms of competitive advantage, and what we have learned is that we don't really have a major competitive advantage anywhere. So what he decided to do is to build a culture as its main competitive advantage. And how do you do that? Well, he hired the right people for his senior leadership team, people with different perspectives and experts, cross-industry experts that could bring different perspectives into this organization and start a real transformation for value creation over time. It wasn't a digital transformation. It was a cultural transformation that one day would get to digital. But first we need to get to some elements of our culture. So how did we actually do this? Well, we established a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms. We instituted collaborative leadership development across the entire organization, with the innovation principles and innovation execution for value creation being a big component of that collaborative leadership development. And then if you do that chronically consistent for many years, by 2018, which was 8 years later, our professionals were identifying, prioritizing, and executing more than 2,000 innovations per year. And these innovations provided additional EBITDA for the company in the order of greater than $1 billion in additional EBITDA. And this $2 billion company in 2010, by 2018, was a $35 billion enterprise without any other competitive advantage other than its culture. So I want to wrap up and do a takeaway here for you. The way to go for extraordinary in your organization is to impact your culture. And to impact your culture, you have to do all those things that I discussed before: clear purpose, moods and feelings, a strong set of core values, moods and feelings, mindsets, principles, mechanisms that translate principles into actions that are value creation actions that show the behaviors that you're building in this culture of excellence and innovation. But you need to unleash the power of your people to go for extraordinary. You have to equip them with new ways of thinking, and you need to establish meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms that they can access. So keep this in mind, that it's very important that they are able to access this mechanism. So in summary, I'm going to summarize here for you. Let me go directly to this page. So when we discuss what matters most, is it ideas, methods, technologies, or people? I want you to remember all of these things matter, but none of them matter in isolation. They are all forces that pull in different directions. You have to find the right blend for your organization of ideas, methods, technologies, and people. But by all means, the most important component are the people. And why we must respect and engage all people, you must identify who are the right people in your organization. And the right people in your organization, they will have traits that you want to identify. And the traits and the behavioral characteristics are a strong sense of purpose alignment between themselves and the organization and their tasks and functions. Passion, which again is more like an arranged marriage. They have discipline, which is again not just following a regimented set of rules, is consistent with their purpose. They have resilience, which is not being stubborn. It is about having the ability to collaborate effectively to overcome challenges, and if unable to do so, to have the resilience to go the longer road because that purpose is worthwhile for them. So how do you find this purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience group in your professionals? Your job as a leader is to set up a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, because these real innovators for value creation, they don't work for other companies. They work for you right now, but they are suffocated because they do not have a mechanism to translate their potential into value creation for their innovations that create value for the organization. So they work for you. Your job is to find them. Your job is to set a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms and tell them anyone in this organization can do this. Become a collaborative leader for innovation for value creation. And as you inspire self-motivated individuals to step forward, you're going to equip them with the ability to have a disciplined approach to innovation. Because the essence of innovation is just the ability to take a different perspective at problems. The cat and the kid have a different perspective of the fish. You need to find these people and equip them with different perspectives and disciplined approaches for developing those different perspectives and innovations. And most important, disciplined approaches for innovation execution, which is more than 90% of the battle. So with that, you're still going to demand them courage and discipline, because it's still going to be scary because they're doing something new. And when you do something new, even if you manage the risks appropriately, you're still going to be a little scared. So you're going to have to reduce the fear of failure in your organization. You need to engage them in a system that's for which risks are well managed. And you say, listen, we have managed the risks appropriately, but we still must have courage and discipline. And we must have the courage and discipline to lead collaboratively. And ultimately, remember, your job as a leader is to create an environment in your organization where these great people and their great ideas can connect, because that's the ultimate accelerator of excellence and innovation and value creation. Create an environment where great people and great ideas can connect. Now, there are only two types of people who predict the future: those who don't know and those who don't know that they don't know. So if you want to predict the future to be a great enduring organization, the only way you have for that is to create that future. And you create the future by developing organizational and professional capabilities around innovation for value creation. And it is only then that you start transforming your business, because the ultimate competitive advantage for any organization, regardless of whatever industry you're in, is to build a culture of excellence and innovation as an ultimate competitive advantage. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have had the privilege of leading some of the greatest organizations in the world. Today, I'm an advisor and keynote speaker on this topic across all industries in all parts of the world. And this is something that for me is a mission, and I'm going to be doing that until the day I pass. So the reason I do this is because I have seen the benefits of value creation from culture, business, and then meaningful digital transformations that create value for professionals, for organizations, for society. And when you find that working for your organization, you're going to see that you're going to become an incredible engine of excellence, of innovation, of value creation. And then you know that you are in a transformation that's worthwhile. So we are going to wrap up the presentation now. If you want to follow the journey that I have across all industries on accelerating excellence, innovation, and transformation, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can see, you can check out our site and direct connection. And I hope to see you on this continuous journey. Now, let me wrap up the day here by setting up what we are going to have tomorrow. So let me stop my screen sharing and go back and change my hats back to the conference facilitator for you here. And oh, this is my innovation background. This is my digital transformation leader background. So I hope you had a good day today. I hope that the sessions added value to your perspective and new ways of thinking for your own organization and how you tackle these challenges of digital transformation. And then I want to set up what's coming up tomorrow, because tomorrow we have a fantastic lineup again of cross-industry leaders and practitioners on transformation. We're going to start the day with Rodolfo Rivera, who is the Chief International Counsel for Fidelity National Financial. And he's just going to have a discussion with you about leading culture, business, and digital transformations in the financial industry. Now, that will be followed by a fantastic presentations from one of the most successful culture, business, and digital transformation programs that are happening right now. And this is Mars Corporation, not the country. I'm talking about the not the country, not the planet Mars. I'm talking about the company here. Mars is leading an incredible, successful digital workplace transformation. And we're going to have one of their most fantastic leaders, Lee Bogner, who is the global e-commerce enterprise architect and innovation strategist for Mars. And he is going to be taking the time to share with you what's happening at Mars today. The name of the session is Learn How Enterprise Architecture Leadership Delivers Value-Based Strategic Innovation. I challenge you for tomorrow during the Mars presentation, listen carefully to what he's saying and remember what we have just discussed, because I'll posit that what Mars is doing is exactly the application of these concepts that we just discussed. So wonderful example for a fantastic leader on transformation. Then we're gonna have two additional heavyweights with us. We are going to have the Director of Digital Workplace Services from Campbell's Soup Company. Campbell's Soup is incredibly successful. Their transformation journey has been fantastic, and we're going to have James Crick with us, who is the director at Campbell Soup, discussing the journey to superior customer experience. And then we're going to wrap up the day tomorrow with another fantastic presenter, a fellow Brazilian who was born in Brazil, and so was this gentleman. His name is Marcos Paganin, and he's going to be calling you, broadcasting, if I'm not mistaken, from his headquarters in Switzerland. He is the global leader for operational transformation at Johnson & Johnson. And Marcos is going to be sharing with you with very great detail the digital operational transformation that Johnson & Johnson is going through. It's a fantastic presentation. You do not want to miss it. So I hope that you can connect with us back again. And that's just day 2, and then we're going to have day 3. In the meantime, do you have questions? Do you want to thank our sponsors, Nintex and Workboard, for allowing you to access all of this content at no cost? Please go to LinkedIn under my name, Jose Pires. Make a comment there. Say thank you to the speakers for sharing their time and expertise with us. Say thank you to our sponsors. Ask questions if you have questions. That's just another way for you to engage between today and tomorrow. Thanks everyone for great questions and engagement throughout the sessions today. And I hope that we can continue this discussion, and I hope that you can continue asking these wonderful questions and engaging on this discussion meaningfully, because all of you are playing a role in the transformations of your organizations. And we have incredibly experienced leaders among us here, and we learn and share accordingly. And we all create the future when we learn and share at this level that we're doing here. So remember, the only way to predict the future is to create it, and this is what we're doing here. Have a great rest of your day, whatever you are in the world, and I'll see you back tomorrow at this channel. Take care.